Hi, this is Michael Wig. I'm the author of the Pain-Free Foods Digestive Disorder books, and we have an extremely important email video for you today because we're going to talk to you about the coronavirus and what you can do and what you should do if you want to stay safer from it and you have a digestive disorder, because frankly, people in high-risk categories such as the elderly, people with hypertension, diabetics, people with compromised immune systems, and people with digestive disorders are at much higher risk, in some cases as much as 40 times the risk of the disease being serious for you or I compared to people that do not have a digestive disorder or some of those other conditions I mentioned. If you happen to be 60 or over and have one of those other conditions, even a digestive disorder, then you're in a high-risk category. Because you're in a high-risk category, we're going to cover in some detail how you can eliminate or reduce to the degree possible your chances of contracting the virus and having your immune system to the point where you are much more likely to fight it off and stay relatively healthy instead of your body needing to submit to the disease because your immune system is so compromised. So what I'm going to do, for the type A's among us, my type, I'm going to give a quick overview so that you can decide if you're going to listen to any or all or any more of this video. So basically we're going to talk about why a person with a digestive disorder is in trouble. That'll take about a minute. We're going to cover several things that you can do and how you're immune, so that you can understand it completely. What are the three parts of your immune system and what percentage each of them make up of your immune system. And again, it may sound boring. It's all going to be practical information, what to do, how to fix it, how to eliminate it, how to be ready, how to make your body ready, how to boost your immune system so that, the truth is that the CDC is now saying that 70 or 80% of all of us, almost no matter what we do, are probably going to contract the virus. So what's just as important, if not more so, than mitigating our chances will be making sure that we're healthy enough to do well even if we have the virus. So that's what this video is going to be about. If that's interesting to you, please proceed. The order of things will be kind of what I just explained. Okay, so first of all, why do you and I, who have digestive disorders, why are we more vulnerable? Well, the answer is that 70% of our immune system is our gut bacteria, that beneficial bacteria that we take probiotics for, or that we have and have cultivated naturally since birth. When you have a digestive disorder, a couple things have probably taken place. One of them is you've probably been through at least one, if not several rounds of antibiotics in your adult years. This is very devastating to your intestinal health, your intestinal gut flora, and so we're going to show you a way to boost that. Mostly though, it is having a low pH in your stomach and digestive tract that kills your intestinal bacteria. So raising your pH to a much more alkaline level is what will help your gut bacteria flourish, and especially if you've seeded it properly with at least some probiotics by the time you become more alkaline. The other two parts of our immune system, believe it or not, are your overall health, and your overall organ function yields a certain amount, a certain healthfulness of the body as it can deliver white corpuscles, white blood cells, to physically go forth through the bloodstream and attack anything that the body considers to be an invader. So for instance, bacteria and viral infections. The third part of the immune system is the thyroid, and the thyroid houses about 1,500 milligrams of iodine. And this is from your diet, or if you supplement iodine, it's from iodine supplementation and your diet. The thyroid holds about 1,500 milligrams of iodine, which is a fairly small amount. If you picture an aspirin tablet might be 125 milligrams, a Tylenol might be about 500. So about 3 Tylenol tablets worth of iodine are stored in a healthy thyroid at all times. So the thyroid, about 15% of the immune system by my estimation, the overall health of the body, and therefore your white corpuscle count as necessary to fight invaders makes up about 15%. And the other 70% is that immune system from your intestinal flora. So those are the 3 things we have to check. We have to make sure we're not very weak in one of those areas. And the big problem is that if you have a digestive disorder, you're almost certainly weak in the main part of the digestive tract, which is your intestinal flora. So we're going to cover all 3 of those really quickly. I'm going to give you solutions, some very practical, quick, easy to follow advice, and we'll mention some of these things. It's much easier to correct with a couple of products, and you can try these if you like. You know, the fact is that many, if not most of you, already have one or more of these products in your house, on your shelf, in your medicine cabinet, especially if you've been following us for very long. Okay, let's go ahead. So first of all, the main transmission for coronavirus, COVID-19, into the body is usually involving, if not your hands, someone else's hands. So simply washing your hands. Sounds like basic, stupid advice that you get on the news or you've been hearing your whole life about different diseases. But here's something that you may not know. Viruses have a fat layer on what's called the nanoparticle, the particle that makes up the virus cell. And because it has this fat layer, that acts as a protective layer to the virus against white corpuscles, for instance. In some cases, it also helps disguise the virus. So when you come home and you've been to the grocery store, the gas station, a friend or relative's house, the health food store, whatever, you have a chance then, because of walking, opening a door, the variety of things that you do, you have a chance of having contaminated your hands. Once you touch a contaminated surface, I suggest that you not touch your face, especially around your mouth or nose or eyes, until you get back home and have a chance to wash your hands. You could also use hand sanitizer or something else while you're still out. But remember that once real soap contacts these viruses, especially, viruses are more vulnerable to soap than most of the other pathogens like bacteria. So once you wash your hands with soap and or a sanitizing agent, then you are you're either dealing with no more live effective virus on your hands, and if not, you have damaged the virus simply by exposure to the soap to where they will be vulnerable once they're inside the body should you become contaminated. So the number one piece of advice is wash your hands all the time. Once we're in the predicament that we're in right now, where who knows where it is, who knows who has it. Apparently it can take 2 weeks to show symptoms. I read an article that said you can get it from a dog. I've since read articles that say that's not likely or possible. But what if we didn't have to worry about all the details, when, where, and the maybes, and you just kept your hands clean multiple times a day, washing your hands, and when, as much as possible, keep your hands away from your face. Secondly, let's get to the 3 things that we need to address to get to a very strong, healthy immune system. So we've covered the basics of what you can do to avoid contracting coronavirus or any illness for that matter. And you can go more extreme on this if you want to. You know, Sonia and I live a mile and a half down a gravel road. We live in a very isolated situation, which we appreciate at the moment especially. But you can do rubber gloves, you can do a mask, you can avoid going to crowded places. You know, a lot of grocery stores even run midnight. I know Walmart Supercenters, which is the grocery store out here in the Midwest, especially in small towns like where we live. You can go late in the evening or real early in the morning and be wary of what you're touching, sanitize the handle on your shopping cart, get in and out, self-checkout without ever touching another person or allowing one more person to touch your things. You can go home and sanitize these things with any spray or wipe or GSE that you have. And then once you move past that, then what you want, that's your first defense, is trying to not contract the disease. The second is to address the 3 parts of the body that equal a strong or a weak immune system. These 3 parts of your immune system amount to your thyroid, believe it or not, your white blood cells or corpuscles, and also, of course, your basic 70% of your immune system, which is your bacterial intestinal flora, your intestinal health. So we'll get to that one in a minute. But for the moment, we're going to talk about your white blood cells, your overall nutrition. So with a compromised immune system, a compromised digestive tract, you and I don't absorb the more difficult to absorb nutrients like other people do. So one solution to that is something that's kind of simple. It's a product called Macro Greens, and what that is, it's a little tub of dehydrated vegetables, leafy greens, algae, spirulina and chlorella, and all the different things that are great for us in concentrated form. It's just these vegetables are dehydrated, ground up, and that's what's in the tub. And also in there is a regular, not a special or acid-resistant probiotic, but enough of a probiotic to digest and really help you absorb the nutrients that are in the macro greens that you take. So that is the first step in creating a strong white blood cell, white corpuscle count, so that you can have enough of these nutrients to have a good overall health and make up for the damage to your digestive tract, so that you actually have and can use these nutrients. And as part of that, your white blood cell, white corpuscle count, these are the soldiers that go out to fight these diseases, will be in top shape and in sufficient quantity. The main solution to that, which is not super easy for everyone, but the main absolute solution for that is catalyst food avoidance dieting. And that's spelled out in a free book on the website. Go to rachelstea.com. There it is. We don't charge for the digital version so that everyone can have it regardless of your income level. So that diet will teach you how, by just adjusting when and where and what you eat. You can eat most things. You can eat probably 80% of what you're used to eating. You drop a few things and you watch the way that you combine foods. This drastically lowers your body acid levels. So I've mentioned the probiotics a couple of times. I would guess or bet that most of you, if you've suffered with gut pain and attacks and flare-ups and issues and taken antibiotics, you've already tried probiotics. And most people that I talk to, including myself, I took some very expensive probiotics before I became kind of my own doctor. And I paid up to like $80 a bottle for some gold label this and special that, and never detected a single benefit, never could feel it, never noticed any even gradual improvement over time. So when a supplement is like that to me, I quit taking it. Rachel and I had a lot of trouble with this because the theory of probiotics is absolute, and then I started thinking, well, probiotics get killed out by either antibiotics or a low pH environment, in other words, an acidic environment. And so what we asked for, we have manufacturers that make the supplements that Rachel sells. And eventually we got, and now have manufactured for us, 2 types of probiotics that are acid resistant. I've never found them anywhere else, and she doesn't charge much for them compared to what they are. These two probiotics, one is Rachel's Pro 100, and I'm not very good at this. I feel like I'm juggling. And the other is Rachel's Pro Berry Chewables. And those two probiotics are both certified as hybridized acid-resistant strains of all the entire broad spectrum probiotics that you need and are supposed to have and have as a child in your gut, and that we have lost over time by taking antibiotics and being overly acidic. Those are the only two that I know of that survive the stomach acid that we put them through when we take them. I've seen on TV there's different claims. This one's coated and it gets through. But in a person who's highly acidic, like you and I, it's even in our intestines and even in our colon, and even the food material that moves through us is overly acidified. There is no getting it through to a certain point and then it survives because there's no more acid. We're acid all the way through. That's why we have a digestive disorder. Those are the two brands that work. So either don't take them at all or take one of those two brands is my flat out suggestion. I can't make it any simpler. I'd rather that I was just telling you about some stranger's website and you could go there so you'd know I was telling you the truth. But the truth is they're not available anywhere else. We had a hand in having them manufactured this way, and so those are the two best that I know of. The next thing that I'm going to tell you, this is actually the last thing we'll talk about, is this little gem. This product is called GSE, stands for grapefruit seed extract. It's a liquid in that little, let's see, it's a 2-ounce little dropper bottle, and you can put a few drops in a drink. You can use it as a hand sanitizer. My daughter works at a hospital, and the other day she came to visit me, and as soon as she left, this is kind of gross, but I took a little and put a dab on each index finger and then played with it in my nostrils for a minute. You can wipe it on your lips, not with the same finger, hopefully. You can wipe it on your lips. It's got an oily texture to it. It is an antibiotic. It's very effective at least degrading and damaging and attacking these different pathogens. I can't tell you the exact effect or percentage of kill or anything with that particular product on viruses. But what I will say is while viruses are outside the body, like on your hands or just getting to your face, your nostrils, your lips, that is a highly effective product. But more so than that, GSE is a mild antibiotic that is non-harmful to the natural aerobic intestinal flora that we all are working towards colonizing and getting back to our healthy 70% youthful immune system. So what it does in the gut is it kills off the negative or anaerobic type bacteria primarily. It's not strong enough, and it's not an aerobic attacking compound, so it tends to leave your good bacteria alone, tends to continue to weaken. And for our family, we're basically taking it every day right now. A few drops, it can be 5 drops. I take 20. Rachel and Sonia take 15 drops. They just put a few drops in a swallow of water, shake the glass a little bit and gulp it down. The one caveat that I would say, there are a couple of medications. I do not know the name of all of them. I know some heart medications are what they call contraindicated if you're eating grapefruit a lot. So does grapefruit seed extract meet that category? And if you're taking heart medication, you should avoid it. But you'd have to ask your doctor if the oil from grapefruit seed is the same as eating grapefruit. Because these couple of medications that I've heard of, they do not mention grapefruit seed or grapefruit seed oil or extract. They mention the grapefruit itself. And I don't know medicinally or side effects or whatnot, whether those two are strongly related and should be avoided if you're taking heart medication. So that's for you to talk to your doctor. So that, in a nutshell, is your first aid kit. I would be washing and taking GSE virtually every day. That little bottle costs around $20, and it'll last. I mean, right now, using it every day, Sonia, I might go through that bottle this year. So it's extremely cost effective, costs very little, it's very helpful, it's very beneficial. Try to up the iodine content in your body, and particularly your thyroid, with the foods I mentioned. Try to up your calcium level with Calm Plus Calcium. Consider eating on the diet that is detailed in the free book at rachelstea.com. And when you're out of the first phase of the program, if you just started, you don't do this. But if you've been doing the program for a little while, or if you're not doing the program at all, you need to take probiotics. Once the Calm is reducing your acid level, and once the macrogreens have boosted your immune system as far as white corpuscles, and you rebuild your intestinal flora with those probiotics, and you're going to find that you're much, much less likely to become symptomatic with a virus. You're much less likely to catch it. If you do, or when we do, many of us are going to catch this virus. And if you do catch the virus and you have built up your immune system using these tricks that I just ran by you, you are much, much, much more likely to do well. Okay, so we've covered avoiding contraction of the disease. We've covered strengthening your 70% of your immune system through probiotic use and hopefully some acid reduction. And we've also covered the nutritional aspects that will increase your overall health, increase your immune system, and increase your ability to produce white blood cells or white corpuscles to attack invaders. The last thing that we're going to discuss as part of this is your thyroid. Your thyroid makes up, in my opinion, about 15% of your immune system, 15% regarding the white corpuscles, and about 70%, as we discussed, with your probiotics in your gut. So now we're going to discuss your thyroid. Your thyroid is supposed to contain, ideally, about 1,500 milligrams of iodine. Iodine comes in various forms. You can supplement with it. You need to be careful. It's possible to overdose on iodine, but not that easy. But it is considered kind of a minor element. You don't need a large quantity of it. So the best way, the safest, the easiest way to get iodine into your thyroid is to make sure you consume enough in your diet. So foods that contain a lot of iodine would be things like seaweed is one of the best sources. The iodine content varies a lot depending on the type of seaweed. I can't keep track of it. But foods that contain kind of a known, measurable, significant amount would be cranberries, eggs. If you do egg whites only, just so you know, the iodine is in the yolk. Shrimp, tuna. Shrimp and tuna I don't like so much as an ongoing source because I eat them sporadically, because they also contain significant amounts of mercury if you eat them too much or too often or ongoing. Also prunes. The easiest way to look at this, prunes and cranberries actually have quite a significant amount. Prunes a little less, about 13 micrograms per a couple of tablespoons worth, about 5 prunes. And cranberries closer to 100 micrograms per a small handful, again, like a couple of tablespoons worth. And it doesn't matter if they're fresh or dried. I like dried because I can keep them on the shelf and I don't have to stop getting an iodine intake because I don't go to the store every 3 days and see if they have fresh cranberries, which they usually don't. So the dried cranberries that come in a pouch, kind of like raisins, those work well for me. I throw them in my cream of wheat or oatmeal. Or you can just eat them by the handful. They're, of course, an S food, a good source of iodine. An egg has about 24 micrograms, the prunes 13, the raisins, or rather the cranberries, or craisins as one of the brand names is called, has about 100. And then if you supplement with periodic tuna, shrimp, and that kind of thing, almost all the shellfish have a good amount of iodine in them. And the one thing I would advise also is, because the ocean is where the iodine largely exists, and that's why some of the shellfish and seafood, seaweed has a lot of iodine in it, That's also where most of our salt comes from, and if it's not where we harvest salt, it was probably an oceanic deposit to begin with. So most salt is sea salt, and sea salt has iodine in it unless we de-iodize it. So when you go buy your salt, I believe that most varieties of salt, whether it's sea salt, land harvested salt, or the Himalayan salt, the pink salts, the specialty salts, they all have iodine unless it has been de-iodized. So just make sure when you get your salt, you don't specifically look for a type that's been de-iodized. So lastly, and I'll kind of close with this, I know we've covered a lot of information and it's kind of the difficult to remember type of information, but there's also calcium supplementation, but especially turmeric supplementation tends to lower the stress level and lower our overall acidity. And because of that, those two things can also be very beneficial. So those of you who are taking turmeric based on our recommendations, don't discontinue doing that. If you take a calcium supplement, continue doing that as well. It tends to neutralize acid and therefore make your body more alkaline. And an alkaline body with a strong immune system, with a few safe practices to avoid contracting a disease, that's really what we're going to be able to do. And I think you're going to be surprised at how well this works. Anyway, that's it for now. There will be more emails in the future, and if this corona thing becomes more critical, then we might do another video or two on it. But this is really kind of the gist of it, and I really trim this down to give you the key things that can really have an effect. So please don't dismiss particular parts that you don't like of what we covered. It would be best if you did kind of a well-rounded thing. And I will also close with this last thought that I know that not everyone that we speak to has $20 or $100 to spare. And so remember that it's following the catalyst avoidance diet that both helps to reduce stress and dramatically reduce your over-acidification in the body. So that one thing will accomplish so much that if you'll just do that and you don't have the money to follow these other practices that require supplementation, then just follow the diet. We give it away for free at Rachel's website. That is the single most important thing you can do. Most of us don't do that perfectly, so supplementation and following some of these other practices is also a great idea. Hey, thanks for listening.